So, can you educate a Soviet-born Russian about this thing called hip hop? Like, if you were to give me, like, if we went on a journey together and you were trying to educate me about, especially, the past couple of decades in the '90s about hip hop or funk, what records or artists would you introduce me to? Would you would you tell me about? Or maybe what influenced you in your journey, or what you just love, like when the family's gone and you just sit back and just blast some stuff these days. What do you listen to?
Well, so I listen to a lot, but I will tell you, well, first off, all great music was made when I was 14. And that statement
Right.
is true for all people, no matter how old they are or where they lived. But for me, the first thing that's worth pointing out is that hip hop and rap aren't the same thing. So depending on who you talk to about this, and there are people who feel very strongly about this, much
Well,
more stronger than
you're
I do.
offending everybody in this conversation, so this is great. Let's keep going.
Hip hop is a culture.
Yeah,
It's a
okay,
whole
gotcha.
set of things, of which rap is a part. So
Gotcha.
tagging is a part of hip hop. I don't know why that's true, but people tell me it's true, and I'm willing to go along with it because they get very angry about it. But hip hop
Tagging is like
is
graffiti.
tagging is like graffiti,
Okay.
and there's all these, including the popping and the locking and all the dancing and all those things. That's all a part of hip hop.
Yep.
It's a way of life, which I think is true. And then there's rap, which is this particular,
It's the music part.
yes, or a music part.
It's something, yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't call the stuff that DJs do, the scratching, that's not rap, right? But it's a part of hip hop, right? So, given that we understand that hip hop is this whole thing, what are the rap albums that best touch that for me? Well, if I were going to educate you, I would try to figure out what you liked, and then I would work you there.
Leonard Skinner.
Oh my God! Well,
Yeah,
then I would probably start with. There-
Led Zeppelin.
There's a
I'm sorry.
fascinating no, it's okay. There's a fascinating exercise one can do by watching old episodes of I love the 70s, I love the 80s, I love the 90s, with a bunch of friends and just see where people come in and out of pop culture. So if you're talking about those people, then I would actually start you with where I would hope to start you with anyway, which is Public Enemy. Particularly, It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, which is clearly the best album ever produced, and certainly the best hip hop album ever produced, in part because it was so much of what was great about the time. Fantastic lyrics, because to me, it's all about the lyrics. Amazing music that was coming from Rick Rubin was the producer of that, and he did a lot, very kind of heavy metal-ish, at least in the 80s sense at the time, and it was focused on politics in the 1980s, which was what made hip hop so great then. I would start you there, then I would move you up through things that have been happening more recently. I'd probably get you to someone like a Mos Def. I would give you a history lesson, basically.
Yeah.
Mos Def's amazing.
He hosted a poetry jam thing on HBO or something like that.
Probably. I don't think I've seen it, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, spoken poetry, that kind of
Yes,
stuff.
he's amazing. Oh, he's amazing. And then after I got you there, I'd work you back to EPMD, and eventually I would take you back to The Last Poets, and particularly their first album, The Last Poets, which was 1970, to give you a sense of history and that it actually has been building up over a very, very long time. So we would start there because that's where your music aligns, and then we would cycle out and I'd move you to the present, and then I'd take you back to the past. And because I think a large part of people who are kind of confused about any kind of music, the truth is this is the same thing we've always been talking about, right? It's about narrative and being a part of something and being immersed in something so you understand it, right?
Mhm.
Jazz, which I also like, is one of the things that's cool about jazz is that you come and you meet someone who's talking to you about jazz and you have no idea what they're talking about. And then one day it all clicks and you've been so immersed in it, you go, oh yeah, that's a Charlie Parker. And you start using words that nobody else understands, right? And it becomes a part of hip hop's the same way. Everything's the same way. They're all cultural artifacts. But I would help you to see that there's a history of it and how it connects to other genres of music that you might like, to bring you in, so that you could kind of see how it connects to what you already like, including some of the good work that's been done with fusions of hip hop and bluegrass.
Oh no.
Yes. Some of it's even good. Not all of it, but some of it is good. But I'd start you with It Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back.
There's an interesting tradition in like more modern hip hop of integrating almost like classic rock songs or whatever, like integrating into their music, into the beat, into the whatever. It's kind of interesting. It gives a whole new, not just classic rock, but what is it? The Kanye with Gold Digger,
Old
like,
R&B.
taking and pulling old R&B, right? And
Well, that's been true since the beginning. I mean, in fact, that's in some ways, that's why the DJ used to get top billing, because it was the DJ that brought all the records together and made it worth so that people could dance. If you go back to those days, mostly in New York, though not exclusively, but mostly in New York, where it sort of came out of. It was the DJ that brought all the music together and the beats and showed that basically music is itself an instrument. Very meta, and you can bring it together and then you sort of rap over it and so on. And it sort of, it moved that way. So that's going way, way back. Now, in the period of time where I grew up, when I became really into it, which was mostly the 80s, it was more funk was the back for a lot of the stuff, Public Enemy at that time notwithstanding. And so, which is very nice because it tied into what my parents listened to and what I vaguely remember listening to when I was very small. And by the way, complete revival of George Clinton and Parliament and Funkadelic and all of those things to bring it sort of back into the 80s and into the 90s. And as we go on, you're going to see, the last decade and the decade before that being brought in. And when you don't think that you're hearing something you've heard, it's probably because it's being sampled by someone who referring to something they remembered when they were young, perhaps from somewhere else altogether. And you just didn't realize what it was because it wasn't a popular song where you happened to grow up. So this stuff's been going on for a long time. It's one of the things that I think is beautiful. Run DMC, Jam Master Jay used to play, he played piano. He would record himself playing piano and then sample that to make it a part of what was going on rather than play the piano.
That's how his mind can think.
Well, it's pieces. You're putting pieces together. You're putting pieces of music together to create new music, right? Now, that doesn't mean that the Roots are doing their own thing.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a whole.
Yeah, but still, it's the right attitude that, and what else is jazz, right? Jazz is about putting pieces together and then putting your own spin on it. It's all the same. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing.
Because you mentioned lyrics, it does make me sad. Again, this is me talking trash about modern hip hop. Like I haven't, investigated. I'm sure people will correct me that there's a lot of great artists. That's part of the reason I'm saying it is they'll leave it in the comments that you should listen to this person. Is the lyrics went away from talking about maybe not just politics but life and so on. Like the kind of like protest songs. Even if you look at like a Bob Marley, or you said Public Enemy or Rage Against the Machine, more on the rock side. That's the place where we go to those lyrics. Like classic rock is all about like my woman left me, or I'm really happy that she's still with me, or the flip side. It's like love songs of different kinds. It's all love, but it's less political, like less interesting, I would say, in terms of like deep, profound knowledge. And it seems like rap is the place where you would find that. And it's sad that for the most part, what I see, like you look at like mumble rap or whatever, they're moving away from lyrics and more towards the beat and the musicality of it.
I've always been a fan of the lyrics. In fact, if you go back and you read my reviews, which I recently was rereading, man, fuck, I wrote my last review the month I graduated when I got my PhD, which says something about something. I'm not sure what though. I often would start with, it's all about the lyrics. And for me, it's about the lyrics. Someone has already written in the comments before I've even finished having this conversation that, neither of us knows what we're talking about. And it's all in the underground hip hop. And here's who you should go listen to. And that is true. Every time I despair for popular rap, someone points me to, or I discover some underground hip hop song and I am made happy and whole again. So I know it's out there. I don't listen to as much as I used to because I'm listening to podcasts and old music from the 1980s
kind of
and
rap.
90s.
No beat.
It's a kind of, no beat at all. But, there's a little bit of sampling here and there, I'm sure.